Hey everyone, welcome to week 5 of the spring 2025 English 1102. Hope you had a great weekend. I started recording this on Friday and then had to stop because I got pulled into a meeting. So now re-recording it. Fun times. Okay. Today we're going to be looking at the transition from your outline to your rough draft or to your first draft. Okay. So let's take a look. Okay, so this is our page, our Blackboard classroom page, our online page. Go to lessons, week 5. Let's close week 4. Week 5. Okay, so you have two things. You have the punctuation and grammar test, which I gave you access to that on Friday. And then the essay 1 draft. Okay. This test has 25 questions on it. They are grammar related questions and punctuation. These are pretty much every single test question came from people's work. Okay, all I did pretty much was just copy and paste sentences, and you have to select the ones that are written correctly. This goes over commas. This goes over quotation marks. This goes over citing sources. It goes over all the things that I've been teaching and that I've introduced since week 2. Week 2, I posted this PDF note PowerPoint and okay, computer. Let's see. Well, if you go to week 2, you see right here. Let's see, week 2 PDF. Open up this. This has all the notes. Okay. And I go over in this PowerPoint, I went over, let's see, things that this quiz go over is right here, starting here, titles and quotation marks. I have test questions all about these. I have test questions about writing titles. These questions about commas, okay, error versus correction. All right, error versus correct. I go over citing your sources, in-text citations. All right, I have examples of all of these. And so I'm giving you examples, and you have to be able to figure out what's correct and what's which one is the correct one. Okay. So you need to make sure that you look at this information. I did post in the announcements the main slides I go over in this are slides 24, 29, 31, 32, 35, 37, 40, 42, 43. Now, the answers are not in these slides. These slides are about the skills that the questions asks you to demonstrate. And by demonstrate, just being able to select the correctly written sentences. All right. So you can't look for the answers in here, but more like about the style. Let's see. I'll give you one example. One test. One example here. Let's see here. Okay, so let's see which of the following is correct. All right, so here is, can I move this damn thing? I'll tell you what, you are being a bastard. If I can get this thing over here, then I will give you an example. Okay. So here's one of the questions. Which of the following is correct? A, B, C, D. Okay. So we have a title. We have titles to look at. You gotta look for, there's more than just one skill happening here. All right, we have title. So you gotta see if these titles are written correctly, which comes from the notes, which my computer is not showing you. This is awesome. So if you go to the your notes, you can use your notes because again, the answers are not really in the notes. The skill is in the notes. So week 2, the titles. Okay, here I go over titles of poems, articles, and articles are in quotation marks. Titles of books are in italics. So you can look at the, all right, is this a book or an article? It's a book because look, context clues, people. So you got to find out which one is written correctly for a book. Okay. And then here we have punctuation. Okay. And then so you can see if that's done correctly. We have a use of ellipses. This is being done correctly. We have parenthetical citation. Is this done correctly? Okay, so which one? So you need to, you're using all these skills. There's when to have a parenthetical citation, when not to have a parenthetical citation, when to use an ellipses, when not to use an ellipses, punctuating quotation marks, writing titles, and then also this is a quote. Is the quote integrated correctly? This is like 5 different skills, all being assessed by this one question. Can you pick out the sentence that is correct, that talks about the book, or writes the title correctly, that integrates the quote correctly, that cites the quote correctly, does it use the ellipses correctly? And only one of these is doing it all correct. There's errors in 3 of these. Okay, and you got to figure out which one is correct. Which of the following is correct? All right. So there's that. We need to move on. So I want to keep this lecture within 30 minutes. Okay. So that is the test, the punctuation grammar test. There's 25 of those questions. I think 20. Yeah, because I think each one's worth 4 points. Or there could be 20 and each one's worth 5 points. Whatever. Okay. It's either 20 or 25. I can't remember. And it will grade it automatically and you'll get your score. Okay. So good luck to that one. Those are all the things I'm grading your paper on. I'm still in the process of grading last week's work. It's been taking me all week because these are not easy things to grade because people are still making tons of mistakes. It's the more mistakes y'all make, the longer it takes for me to grade this stuff. Because I'm like, highlight. I'm grading these the same way I'm gonna be grading your papers. And right now, these grades, if you're making consistently 65s, that means you're probably going to make a 65 on your test because you're not improving. After I grade your stuff, you need to look at all the things that, I'm writing comments. I am highlighting errors and writing comments on there, okay? And so you need to notice what errors are you making and then fix that error. Stop miswriting titles. Stop not integrating quotes, stop not citing sources correctly, stop misformatting your papers. Because those are all the things that I'm looking for in your papers that you can do well, and you'll lose points, 5 points off for every time you're doing them incorrectly. So you need to make sure that you are doing this stuff accurately. All right. Be sure to be looking at this work. I'm not just giving you completion grades. I wish I was giving you completion grades. Do you know how easy it would be just to give you a completion grade? But I am highlighting and commenting. Sometimes it might just be like review I might highlight the title of the short story and say review how to punctuate titles, review how to write titles, or I might say titles of short stories go in quotation marks. So look over that stuff. Hopefully last week's assignment will be posted soon and you'll get your grade. Okay. All right. So this week, the Essay 1 draft. Okay, so download this. Oh, not that. Whoops. Sorry. That's the draft. Yes, the draft should be in MLA formatting. What you want to do, the way you want to complete your draft is actually, you want to pull up your outline. Okay. Pull up your outline. This is your outline. All right, this is my fake outline. Pull up your outline. All right. You are going to write this within your outline. You're going to change. Oh, I've already kind of started doing this, right? This right here, originally this says outline. Okay. You just want to change it to SA1. Okay. And then save it. File. Save as SA1 draft. I'm going to put example. Okay. Now, you want to go one paragraph at a time. Having a great outline doesn't mean that you get to write the whole paper in order. You can, but you don't have to, though. Okay. You can write it in chunks because you're just going to be tackling. And I suggest this. I suggest writing one paragraph a day. Give yourself time to write one paragraph a day. If you write just one paragraph a day, that means every single paragraph gets 100% of your brain power. If you try to sit down and write 3 paragraphs, 4 paragraphs, your first paragraph will get about 100% brain power. And then the next paragraph will get about maybe 80%. And then the next paragraph will get about 60%. And then as you keep writing on that in that same day consecutively, your paragraphs are just going to be getting worse and worse. So I really suggest just tackling one paragraph a day. That's it. Okay. That's it. And they all have different functions. All right. So your first paragraphs is your introduction. Okay. Your introduction you should try to begin broad. Begin broad. All right. Broad comments, move toward the short stories, and end with your thesis. All right. So start from the other end. This is over a little too much. All right. Okay. So look, and you can write this in first person for the most part, and then move in and out of first person and third person. Okay. So begin broad, begin personal, begin broad, and personal. Okay, because you're going to end it personal. Your final paragraph is going to be about you, personal connection to either the 3 stories or the philosophy. All right. There needs to be a personal aspect to this essay because we are in an age today where people love some personal information. They want to feel like they know the writer, which I like also. Okay. So I already started typing some of this. You want to just move towards your story. Okay. So like I might begin with something like when I was a kid, I always thought adults had everything figured out. Childhood is a paradox, and that it is both easy but also completely uncertain. Kids know nothing, but there's also freedom in being able to exist without having to know anything. Okay, that's my broad and kind of personal thoughts about childhood. So then I started to move into the stories, not yet getting to my thesis. So then I kind of wrote this. I think I'm not that much different in having assumed adults had everything figured out, and that once one became an adult, they never changed. And the truth that these assumptions are wrong is evident in The Story of an Hour, The Adulterous Woman, and The Sea Change. All of these stories deal with adults who are living lives that do not fulfill them, and they must decide to either change the direction they are on or succumb to the tragedy of a life not worth living. All right, so I began with broad and personal when I was a kid. This is what I thought. And now I'll move towards the short stories. Now I'm writing my paper on The Story of an Hour, The Adulterous Woman, and The Sea Change. Stories that you didn't read. And I'm doing that because I don't want to I don't want to steal your thunder on your stories. I want to, I don't want to influence your writing. I don't want to influence your analysis. So I'm just picking 3 stories that you don't know about. Okay. So I went personal. I mentioned the 3 stories that I've stated that I've read. I provided a sort of a all-inclusive sentence about those 3, what they have in common. And then I move into my thesis statement. Now, this was my thesis statement that I wrote for my submission, my thesis statement submission. Reading stories helps us understand people better, such as how personal autonomy is the purest form of pleasure, as symbolized by the open window, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So I can try to put this in seamlessly, or I might have to modify it slightly. All right. So I'm going to delete this part of my outline because I don't need that. And let's see. I slightly changed this a little bit. I said, let me see here. Let's see, what I did was I wrote reading stories can reveal truths to readers through the experiences of these symbols, themes, and characters they encounter, such as, and then such as how. Okay, so I slightly modified my thesis, which is fine, because now that I wrote more of my introduction, it just fits better this way. Siambills. Truths. All right, great. So now I have my first paragraph. When I was a kid, I always thought adults had everything figured out. Childhood is a paradox, and that it is both easy but also completely uncertain. Kids know nothing, but there's also freedom in being able to exist without having to know anything. I think I'm not that much different in having assumed adults had everything figured out, and that once one became an adult, they never changed. And the truth that these assumptions are wrong is evident in these stories. All of these stories deal with adults who are living lives that do not fulfill them, and they must decide either to change the direction they are on or succumb to the tragedy of a life not worth living. Reading stories can reveal truths to readers through the experiences of the symbols, themes, and characters they encounter, such as how personal autonomy is the purest form of pleasure as symbolized by the open window in The Story of an Hour. How women like Janine in The Adulterous Woman must reclaim their identities after giving them up for the men they marry. And how existentialism can help people like Phil overcome social pressures in The Sea Change. Boom. I don't know why I have this rotated. I'm just gonna... All right, so let's say today's Monday. Okay, there's 5 days this week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I have 5 paragraphs to write. I'm done. I just might call it a day. I'm done. I put forth my time into writing this paragraph, and I'm done. I feel good. I like it. So then I might just wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow I will tackle this second body paragraph. Okay, which let's say, it is today. Okay. So with your next body paragraph, with your first kind of body paragraph, you want to follow what I discussed in week 2. The week 2 notes, where I discussed the progress of a paragraph: claim, support, analysis. Claim, support, analysis. Okay. Now you have that. This is your claim. Your claim is how personal, whatever it is in your thesis, this is your claim pretty much for your first short story. You have your symbol that you're going to discuss, and then you have your quote from your summary. Quote from your book. And then you have your quote from your outside source. Okay. So now you need to work that all together. You need to kind of sew these together. So let's begin with our claim, which should echo what's stated in your thesis. Okay. So if my thesis says personal autonomy is the purest form of pleasure as symbolized by the open window in the story of an hour. Okay. So, all right. So I'm gonna begin this. In Kate Chopin's story of our Miss Mallard is given the news of her husband's assumed death, and while most wives would succumb to grief and emotional turmoil at the news of their husband's premature death, Miss Mallard has a different reaction. Ecstasy. Oh, I didn't spell it correctly. There it is. Okay. All right. For a moment, now you didn't read the story, but if you read the story of an hour, Miss Mallard ends up having an orgasm spontaneously at the news of her husband's death because it means that she's ultimately free. She lives in a time in which women didn't have power or money or anything on their own. But a widow, widow has all of the benefits of being married, meaning she inherits all of her husband's money and wealth, yet without having to have a man control her life. So, her moment of orgasmic jubilee occurs as she sits front. I was going to combine in front of her open window. Okay. In front of her open window. Where now I'm going to pull in this quote here, okay? Patches of blue sky showing here and there through the clouds I had met and piled one above. Okay, there we go. Where patches of blue sky. Now look, showing in there. I would, I'm going to change showing to showed. Actually shows, because showing doesn't make sense in this sentence. So her moment of orgasmic jubilee occurs as she sits in front of her open window where patches of blue sky show here and there through the clouds that had met and piled one above the other in the west facing her window. Okay. All right. This window represents the freedom that awaits Miss Mallard now that she is no longer tied to her husband. Okay. His death has brought her financial independence in a time period where women couldn't even hold jobs, okay, or bank accounts in their own name, okay. All right, so then I have that. All right. So now I have this quote from these people. Instead of giving her husband, so I've incorporated this. All right, I'm gonna get rid of this. Now, I might rework. This doesn't really have my claim in it, so I might rework that. I can go ahead and delete this because I've inserted that. Quote from secondary source. Instead of grieving for her husband, she retreats upstairs and slowly but surely starts developing thoughts of liberation. Initially, she refused to allow herself this freedom of thought, but the same message reaches her through the scenery outside the window frame. And from the outside, the nature outside charges Louise with fresh energy. But more importantly, she also starts experiencing hope. I can't quote all that. It's a great quote. I love this quote. It's a very good quote. But the quote is too big. Okay. So I don't want you to have long quotes. I want you to cut them up. All right. So I need to cut it down. And what I want to focus on is the nature outside charges Louise with fresh energy. But more importantly, she also starts experiencing hope. Okay. And so, but I do like this. Instead of grieving for her husband, she also starts experiencing hope. I'm going to cut all this out in between. Okay. All right. In the late 1800s, oops. Women, let's see. In the late 1800s, women were limited in their lives by the social requirements placed upon their sex. But the symbolism of the window, okay, a window, but the symbolism of the window presents what lies ahead of her and the possibilities that she now has. Okay. In the face of her husband's death, comma, change capital to lowercase. In the face of her husband's death, instead of grieving for her husband, she also starts experiencing hope. Now, I'm going to delete this period. I got to delete that period because I got to cite my source. I have two authors here. You can put two authors' names in the parenthetical citation. You just put the first last name, and then the second last name. Okay. Period. All right. Now look, some people have told you you cannot have a comma between a sentence and the quotes because it's a run-on. But see, this is an introductory clause. This is not a complete sentence. In the face of her husband's death, comma. Instead of grieving for her husband, she also starts experiencing hope. All right. Actually, I'm gonna get rid of this also. She starts experiencing hope. There you go. All right. A comma can separate an introductory clause with the quote itself. Okay. Then I have this right here. Okay. But now, so I have my lead in, and then I have some my quote, but I can't end the paragraph with a quote. But now I realize I might have put some of my analysis too high up. So let me see if I can switch some of this with this quote. So I have, all right. All right. This window represents the freedom that awaits Miss Mallard now that she is no longer tied to her husband. I think I might move this up here. In the face of her husband's death, instead of grieving for her husband, she starts experiencing hope. Yeah, his death has brought her financial independence in a time period where women couldn't even hold jobs or bank accounts in their own name. Late 1800s, women were limited in their lives by the social requirements placed upon their sex. But the symbolism of the window represents what lies ahead of her and the possibility that she now has, which is freedom of autonomy and self and being self-sufficient. It is a not benefit, it's a privilege that the majority of women at the time were not given. All right. Boom. There's my body paragraph. All right. Now I'm gonna fix a little bit my claim here. The story of an hour is how personal autonomy is the purest form of pleasure, as symbolized by the open window. Okay. All right. So right, Kate Chopin uses the symbolism of an open window in her story of an hour to represent how personal autonomy is the purest form of pleasure. Okay. Delete that space. Okay. So with this claim, I got to talk about symbolism, open window, personal autonomy, purest form of pleasure. All right. This claim is the basis of this whole paragraph. Everything goes back to this claim right here. So symbolism, the open window, I guess. Yeah. Personal autonomy is something that I mentioned in this claim. And then purest form of pleasure, I also reference. Okay. All right. So ecstasy in her moment of orgasmic jubilee. All right, that's pleasure. Open window. This window represents freedom. Okay. This is the symbolism conversation here. Freedom right here. Financial independence, women getting a job. Okay, all that references personal autonomy. Great. So like all the things I mentioned in my claim, I discussed here. I have two quotes. I have an outside source, and I need to cite the source. Oh my goodness! Catches the blue sky. This is the quote from the short story. So I need to put Chopin. All right. Now you don't need to highlight your paper. I just do that to check myself. Okay. So everything I mentioned in my claim is here now in my body paragraph as well. I have a quote. I have two quotes. I have from my primary source, the short story, and I have cited it. And then I have a quote from my secondary source, and I've cited it. All right. Now this citation here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, delete. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom here. I'm going to create a new page. I'm going to call this Works Cited. And then I'm going to go ahead and just paste my citation right there. Okay. And boom, it's there. All right. So this process of going through each of your sections from your outline and then converting it into a body paragraph. All right. Claim, and then your support, and then you add analysis. You should be referring back to the notes that I posted from week 2 that goes over the 3 parts of your body paragraphs. All right. You need to be integrating your quotes like I discussed in that same PowerPoint, how to properly integrate quotes, how to cite, how to punctuate them. All right. And you should work on 1 body paragraph per day. Work on it, right? I do not suggest writing your whole paragraph, your whole essay, and then trying to go back and edit your entire essay. I say 1 paragraph at a time. Write the whole paragraph and then edit that paragraph so it's perfect. Write another paragraph and then edit that paragraph. A paper is just a collection of paragraphs. That's all it is. So if each paragraph is perfectly written and perfectly edited, then the whole paper is. It's overwhelming to be like, I got to sit down and write my whole paper. I got to write 5 paragraphs. I got to write 3 papers, 3 pages. I got to edit all of it. That's overwhelming. But if you just spend 1 paragraph a day, I'm going to write this paragraph and I'm going to edit it and make it perfect and beautiful and awesome. And then I'm going to write this paragraph and I'm going to make it perfect and beautiful. And I'm going to edit it. And then I'm going to write this paragraph the next day and then this paragraph the next day. You will have a paper in which you used 500% of your brain on. Okay? Because every paragraph got 100% each day. All right? So then set about and turn this next one into a paragraph. Copy and paste your citation, citation down here on your works cited page. Okay. And then your third one. But you need to make sure that they're in alphabetical order. So like this is B. So this B one needs to go here. Okay. There, your works cited page is done. Conclusion. Personal connection to either one of the 3 stories of the philosophy. Type, event in your life or personal beliefs. Maybe you connected to one of the stories. Maybe you love the philosophy and this is why. Write about it. Okay. Don't do all of them. Just pick either a story that you really connected with and why, or a philosophy or your philosophy, why you connected to it and why. But the conclusion should be your personal reflection. Okay. How you feel. All right. Okay. I hope this was helpful. I mean, I did this live for you. I'm giving you an example of the introduction. I'm giving you an example of a body paragraph. All right. I'm not writing the rest of it. I'll post this for you as an example of a body paragraph, conclusion, and the way the works cited page should be. Not conclusion, a body paragraph and introduction. All right. So you can see it. Essay 1 draft. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, y'all. I got to go. Take it easy now. All is good. Bye-bye.